Thank you, everyone. My name is Laurice Bell. I am sadly not a native Evanstonian, but I pretend to be one daily. I was born on the South Side and moved to Evanston when I was 6 years old after my mother passed away in 1968. So what was a year of turmoil for many was quite a year of turmoil for me. I want to go back and thank Steve Rogers for having us here. Steve talked about the Sutton family being on Bower Place. And I want to bring up one other thing. Recently, through my podcast, Evanston Rules, with Ron Whitmore, who's here as well, who's my partner in the podcast, we did a project with Northlight Theater, and we recorded people's stories about their memories of community hospitals, some who were there, some who had family members, Dr. Penn's daughter, many people involved. We had Carlos Sutton, and we spoke to Carlos, and Carlos said something to me that I thought was quite interesting, and he said it to us, actually. And he was talking about when the houses were either torn down or moved to the Fifth Ward. And what he said is, in the South, they say you can get close but not too high. And here in the North, they say you can get high but not too close. Hence the tearing down of these properties that they didn't build, which I don't know that Joni Mitchell meant this, but they paved Paradise and they put up a parking lot. They had no intention of building anything there. They just did not want black people over here. I can't say that I think they still do. But another point I'd like to bring up is when Steve's church was mentioned, this is what, when I speak about community, it's like, whose community are we speaking about? Because certainly I knew that Steve's church was here, and I've known for a while the work that he's been doing. And so for me, and for many in our community, we know about the church, we know about what he's building. And so I think that some of that has to do with how we expand our communities, who we speak to, who we reach out to. When we say things like we've reached out to the community, what does that mean? What does that look like? And so I think it's important that we redefine what that means. Recently, I became part of a project that was the woman's mural that was unveiled a couple of weeks ago. It was the Evanston History Center, it was Art Encounter, and Shorefront got to be a part of it. When I received the list of the names, it was a limited list. It was white names and some black names, and no one else was included. Now, I could say I collect Black history, so we had a lot of our names, but we still didn't have a lot of our names. And if we are going to do the right thing, then we need to be more expansive in terms of who we're including. And when we talk about women, when we talk about feminism, when we talk about womanism, that is not just black women and white women. That is all women. I reached out to Kim at the Mitchell. We reached out to a number of other people in the community, and we talked to people about, and by the way, we've got Fran Joy on that mural wall because of all that she's done. We've got Kim Bijou on that mural wall because all she's done. Jan Schakowsky, who just left, I'm gonna call her Fran, that's awesome. Jan Schakowsky, who just left, is on that wall. We have a number of people in this audience who have family members who are on that wall. But what we needed to do was we needed to reach out to other communities, the Latina community, the Muslim community, the queer community. We needed to reach out to the Asian community. And those communities needed to determine who was going to be on that wall. I was asked, well, how do we know what people have done? And I said, it's not yours to figure out. Nobody has been gatekeeping the communities that have been listed on all these walls for many years, and now is not the time to start gatekeeping others as we bring them in. I am not as prepared as the pastor, and nobody should have to follow you, I don't think. But I want to say that I grew up here. I grew up seeing a lot of things. Oh, wait, I forgot some of my notes. They're over here, forgive me. I grew up seeing especially black girls not getting the same rights, the same attention, the same care, the same thoughts in school, the same opportunities. In fact, opportunities wasn't really a word, maybe opportunity. And if things didn't quite go right, the opportunities weren't there as they were for many others. And this is in Evanston, our Evanston that we call this wonderful space, and it is in many ways a wonderful space. So when I speak in this way, it's not because I don't love Evanston. I want to paraphrase James Baldwin, who said that he loved America so much that he felt it important to criticize what he loved every day. And I feel that way about Evanston. I feel that way about every place that we stand in. So as a woman, I'm living in an era where we're all watching the rights we have fought for so many generations not so slowly be rolled back. And as a black woman, I'm particularly worried. New York Times journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones, who headed up the 1619 Project, recently wrote an essay that has unleashed a bit of tumult. Ms. Jones is no stranger to putting truths that have not been spoken into public discourse. And as she wrote about what we are seeing today, she talked about our history of slavery, institutional racism, and the ramifications of both today. She said, in order to address the disadvantages that Black Americans face, do we ignore race to eliminate its power, or do we consciously use race to undo its harms? Affirmative action and other racial justice programs were born of that era, but now, once again, we are in a period of retrenchment and backlash that threatens the stability of our nation. End quote. It is no surprise to me that it takes a strong woman to frame the stakes of the issues we all face today. And nowhere more than Evanston do we grasp the racial injustice cannot be and just remain a subject that we brush under the table. There must be atonement. I don't have to tell you that there is only one city in the nation that has actually undertaken and followed through on paying people reparations, right? And by the way, I don't know that I believe that's something to applaud, because I think it's outrageous that there is still only one city in the United States. I mean, I'm glad that we can applaud, but there's a lot more that we need to do. This $25,000 is a mediocre apology, but what I believe it will do is it will allow us to be the first so that Amherst can then crawl, so that Oakland can then walk, so that Berkeley can then run. And that is how we have to view it, I believe. I believe that, you know, the historical mistakes must be recognized, talked about, and atoned for and understood in Evanston. The reparations program in this city is something we should all be proud of, and even more so because it is not just something we have done, it's a process we have undertaken. It is an ongoing movement to find a way through one of the country's most difficult issues. I heard Kamala Harris speak, and we're quoting Kamala tonight. I heard her speak, and she talked about how we get tired. We say we're tired. I want to say who isn't tired. But we get tired, and then we stop, and we don't keep the momentum going. And she said that her grandmother said it was like brushing your teeth. You needed to brush your teeth every day to keep your teeth. You needed to eat every day to keep your strength. You needed to shower every day. You needed to exercise every day. And that's how we have to treat our rights. We have to treat them with care every day as we get up, as we breathe, as we walk, as we talk. I'm talking about women's rights. I'm talking about rights for Black people. I'm talking about rights for others that really are disappearing. Shorefront was really proud to be part of the reparations process. Dino Robinson, who founded Shorefront and who saw something and acted on it when nobody else was doing so, right? When Dino Robinson went to a local history center and was told that Black people hadn't really done anything integral to the build of Evanston. He was, say it again. What was that? Do it again. Right. There you go. He was shown 3 file folders marked colors in the year of 1995. Now, my issue isn't even that it was marked colors, because in a period of time, that is what we called ourselves. When I was a child, I was a colored child in the 60s. It's simply that because you don't have the right people handling who you are and your history, they mislabel you and they don't update to speak of who I am today. And that is why I think reparations is necessary. That is why I will take it one step further and speak about repatriation. I think about the importance in our community of recognizing who has done what and how we have done it. Recently at Shorefront, we had a program this summer where we had 2 interns do work where they interviewed people who were either worked in people's homes as domestics or family members who had mothers, typically, who worked in people's homes. It's a subject that's a tough subject because no one wants to recognize the work that these mostly women did to build our country. Not just our community, but our country. Free slave labor, we could never be who we are without that. And yet we had women going into homes, loving those children, loving their families, cooking for their families, building for their families. And very often, then being let go when they were no longer needed. Leaving children they loved, being left and having the children, who loved them, not knowing what's going on. They worked for families so that other people could do everything else, right? So when we think about people who could go and do those marches, people who could go to work, people who could go to lunch, who was in the home, building that home and not getting a 401k and not getting any of the benefits that anyone else got and leaving with nothing. But often the clothes on their back, right? Maybe they were invited again for Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe they were invited for Christmas dinner. Maybe it was to work. Maybe it was to sit in the kitchen. Maybe it was to come sit at the table. But when I think about all that women have done, Black women have done, I think of my mother, and I stand here as the daughter of Adrienne Rowena Van Zandt. I stand here as the granddaughter of Darlene Hill Van Zandt. And I know that they didn't have the opportunities that I have. I know that that is why I stand here. That is why I do the work I do to collect the histories that are so key and so important and so necessary. We have a reparations project that we worked on as well. Shorefront is known in many ways for reparations, but that is just a piece of it, and that was just because of what we collected. We collect the joys in our lives as well. We collect all of the spirits that have come through. People say, you're in that space alone, isn't it lonely? And I say, each box I open surrounds me with my ancestors. So it is for me a space where I feel at peace and I feel surrounded by just brilliance. We did a reparations project where we had students, high school students, pair up with recipients of reparations. What it looked like was an 8-week program where we had people speak. We had Cheryl Corley from NPR. We had Robin Ruth Simmons. We had Keith Beauchamp, who wrote and produced the movie Till. We had a historian, Cheryl Johnson Odom. And they all spoke to these kids about what it looks like to come into a space and interview people. And some of that was cultural. You don't walk into a space and I wouldn't say, hi, Audrey. I would say, hello, Miss Moy. Those are some of the things that are important when you go into other communities and other cultures. It's not just to walk in and just start talking and to be who you are. It is to get to know where you are. What happened is the adults, the elders were just going to come for the first session and then they were going to leave and come back at the end when they were going to be interviewed. They loved it so much they kept coming back. The intergenerational piece of communities also, it's not just about race, it's not just about gender, it's also, there's age, right? We hire all these young interns and we're so excited and it's so important to do it. But what I've realized in this city of Evanston is that we talk so often to our elders. We go to them for all of the information and they have been in articles on TV shows and they've not been compensated. They are selling their lives, their stories, their ancestors' lives. Everyone gets to profit from it. What little you might know, what lot you might know. It's a space that people are not treated fairly once again. So while we're talking about reparations, we're not paying people to share their stories. There's something wrong there. There's a disconnect in terms of what we say we want to do and what we do every day. So we did this program. We have journals that will be coming out. We have videos that will be coming out, and it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful process. We're doing a second cohort, and we're having more kids. If any of you have kids that you think might want to participate, we welcome them to apply to the program. Another project that I've been working on recently was Ron and I, through Evanston Rules, partnered, as I said, with Northlight Theater, and we recorded all of these episodes of people talking about community hospital. We recorded these episodes of Carlos talking about his family's home being moved. And then when you think about that, think about the value of a house here versus the value of a house in the Fifth Ward. The Fifth Ward is a marvelous place. The Fifth Ward was an extraordinary space where we had community hospital, which closed in 1980, after being a place that Black people could go to be loved, to be looked at as though their pain meant something, to be healed in spaces that people thought, oh, they should go to Evanston Hospital, they should go to St. Francis Hospital. No, they should have been given the opportunity to go, but they should have been able to go to community hospital where they would have been respected and seen, where they would have been taken seriously. It reminds me of a story that Rose Johnson told about a teacher of mine, Jean Perry, and there was a kid who was always getting in trouble, young Black child, young boy getting in trouble. And we know that that happens to young Black boys far more than it happens to others, especially when they're educated by people who don't understand them. This young boy was always in the principal's office, and he talked to Jean Perry. She said, why are you always in the principal's office? Stay out of the principal's office. You're always in trouble. And he said, well, she yells at me, and Jean Perry said, well, I yell at you too. And he said, yeah, but you like me. This is what we face everywhere, right? But I could go on and I ping and I pong because that's just who I am, so we're gonna get used to that. But when I think of the Suttons moving into the Fifth Ward that has a lot of wonderful, but it also has a 13-year lifespan differential, less than any other ward in this city. So we have to also look at the environment and what people are willing to leave in our backyards that they're not willing to have in their own. We've got waste management. We've got a bus company that has a lot of pollution. We've got above ground power, what do you call them? Power lines that make a difference. I'd be interested in knowing how many people have been affected by this, because it's not just trauma, which is huge. It's not just healthcare problems, which are huge. It is that we have put people in a space that is not safe, and we do it again and again. $25,000 will never be enough, will never be enough. And then that we're questioned as to what we're going to do for it, that it's used for housing. That didn't happen to the Japanese. It didn't happen to the Jewish community. No one was asked to detail how they would spend their money. I think that speaks volumes. That 40 years later, 60 years later, we are being questioned for how we will spend this money. In the project that Ronnie and I did about community hospital, when we talked to all these people, we didn't just hear the pain. We heard we had everything we wanted. We had everything we wanted. And then many of those things were taken away with the school clothing, with the school closing, with the Y closing. Integration was not necessarily great from my perspective to many of our people, because there were many things that happened with that took away a community. When we recorded these episodes, we worked with a writer, with a directing playwright fellow at Northlight, a young man named Tor Campbell, who's awesome, who finished his year at Northlight, who is now at the Goodman doing great work. And Tor wrote some scenes, some monologues for actors. And one of the actors that he included was this extraordinary person here, Norissa Pearson, who's with us tonight to read again from the readings about Community Hospital and about the experiences.
The best view of Evanston is in your rearview mirror. That's what my grandfather always said. God rest his soul. And boy, was he right. You see, Evanston has a way of looking picture perfect on the surface. But once you dig a little deeper, the cracks start to show. And I'm not talking about the potholes on Church Street. No, I'm talking about the history, the soul of this place. My family has been here for generations, ever since my great-grandfather Elijah moved up from Nashville. They came looking for a better life, escaping the trauma of the South. My granddaddy used to say, "We traded cotton fields for cobblestones, but the chains just got invisible." He wasn't wrong. Back then, we couldn't even go to the main hospitals. Community Hospital of Evanston was our safe haven. It was the only place that would treat us like humans, and not just on Wednesdays when the white doctors were off playing golf. But let me tell you, Community Hospital was more than just a hospital. It was a lifeline. My Aunt Polly worked there as a nurse. Every day she'd come home, bake some cornbread, and tell stories of how Dr. Hill and Dr. Spencer saved lives with nothing but their sheer will and determination. The smell of cornbread baking in the oven would just fill the house, a scent so comforting that I still bake it to this day just to bring back those memories. And they had soul, and they had a Cadillac. Seriously, Dr. Spencer drove a cherry red caddy that was the envy of the entire neighborhood. I remember one summer, my baby brother Danny was sick, real sick. The kind of sick that makes your heart stop when the phone rings late at night. We couldn't even call an ambulance because they wouldn't take us. So we rushed him to Community ourselves, and Dr. Hill was there just like always. She saved him. She saved so many of us. The kind of savior you don't forget. And in moments like those, you knew we were in the hands of angels. Now, when I look back at everything that's happened here, I see the change. The Black community isn't the heart of Evanston anymore. We've been pushed out, replaced, forgotten. But we built this town. We did. My Aunt Polly raised money for that hospital with fancy dinners and fundraisers that would put a North Shore celebration to shame. And the thing is, Evanston streets may look different, but the foundation, the spirit, it's still ours. There are not many things in life you can be sure of. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone will change. Yes, yes, nothing and no one goes unchanged. The young become the old, and mysteries do unfold. But that's the way of time. Nothing and no one goes unchanged. There are not many things in life you can be sure of, except the rain comes from the clouds, the sun lights up the sky, and hummingbirds do fly. Everything must change. You know?
That was beautiful.
You know, I drive past the old community hospital, and it's just a shell of what it used to be. But I can still hear the echoes of laughter, the cries of newborns, the voices of our ancestors. They whisper to me, reminding me of our strength, our resilience. They remind me that no matter how far I go, Evanston will always be a part of me. But still, the best view of Evanston, it's in my rearview mirror. Because while I carry its lessons with me, I know my future lies ahead, not behind. And that's the bittersweet truth.